Folks, it is January 17th, and we are here today to talk about 8 ways to boost your sales with a better culture. And I am excited to have my good friend Anton Brummer here to join me. You know me already, folks. I'm Aaron Schmookler. I'm the CEO and co founder at the S Works, where we exist to bring people and profits together through effective culture. It's culture very often that prevents profit and culture that makes people miserable. So culture can also make people joyous and fulfilled at work. And it's joyous people who tend to deliver the best results. Anton, I'm so excited to have you here to talk about 8 ways to boost sales with a better sales culture. Take a moment, please, and introduce yourself.
Well, thanks, Aaron. Nice to be here. Um, well, my name's Anton Brummer. I work with a company called Sales Acceleration. Um, we are fractional sales leaders. We go out into the marketplace and help companies build sales infrastructure. That's basically what we do. That involves sometimes doing a little bit of sales coaching, but also getting our hands dirty and getting in there and getting involved in the actual sales leadership and making them successful.
Terrific. So, as we've said a couple of times now, we are here to talk about 8 ways to boost sales with a better sales culture. Anton, you've got 4 suggestions for the
Mhm.
good people at home. I've got 4 suggestions for the good people at home. You don't know what I'm going to suggest, and I don't know what you're going to suggest. So this is going to be an adventure for us as much as it is for you who are with us on the other end. So, Anton, what is your first suggestion?
My first suggestion is never fire a salesperson. If you do that, it's your fault.
Wow. That's a bold statement. I look forward to hearing more about that. Tell us more.
Well, that is a conversation I have with every CEO or every sales leader that I encounter in any of our engagements, because it's all about creating a culture and a platform to to create winning sales. It's one kind of forgets all the time. We put so much pressure on the salespeople to deliver, and we don't put enough pressure on ourselves as a sales
Mm.
leadership to create a world where they can perform well.
So never is a very strong word. And so I'm curious to know, I'm sure people object to this all the time, right? I'm
Yeah, I
imagining the
normally get a
various
fantastic reaction.
so so what if I've done everything that I can to prompt, to cajole, to train? What if I've tried everything that I can to improve a salesperson's performance and they're still not delivering? What do I do in that case, Anton?
But it starts off from the beginning, and that is hiring the right people.
Mm.
Okay. And very often we hire too quickly, too hastily, and there's not enough thought behind it. Um, One of the problems is that we always tend to hire people that are looking instead of hiring the people that are not looking. So the people that are not looking are normally happy in their jobs, doing well and performing.
Mm.
Those that are looking, there's a reason they're looking. And those are the ones that we tend to hire. And that's where the problem starts, at that level.
So I very easily agree with the second half of this statement, and I have, over the years, I've fired people, and I don't
Mm,
I don't just think of this in terms of salespeople. I think this anybody in your organization,
mhm,
and even at times when I've been supervising somebody who's in a job, essentially I've inherited them, right? I came in to a
mhm.
supervisory role, and there they are. I'm not the one who hired them. And it has come to the point where I have felt a need to let them go in order to accomplish the goals that have been put on me by the organization. And I have thought it is my fault. I I am firing you
Mm.
because I have not figured out and cannot figure out the combination to the lock that is your performance. Uh, and even if it is my fault, I've still got to figure out a way to get whoever's in this role to be performing, and I haven't figured that out with you, so I've got to figure that out with somebody else instead. Um, so I easily think of it as being my fault. The part of this that's harder for me is the never. So, do you mean like if I've come in as the new sales leader and I've got people on my team and I give this relationship a month, 3 months, 6 months, and I've been doing everything that I can think of to improve this salesperson's performance and it's just not going anywhere? Do you mean never?
Well, that's maybe a bit of a strong word, never, but it is what I'm looking for, and what I'm trying to get through to leadership is it's all about what you do,
Mhm.
and you've got to take accountability and ask yourself the questions: Have I done everything?
Mm,
All right,
yes.
and
There we go.
yeah,
I love that, and it jives. You know, I've told CEOs recently. It occurred to me in one conversation with a CEO who was complaining about accountability, or rather, a lack of accountability on his team. And I said, you know, what have you done about it? And how long has this been going on? It had been
mm,
going on. He'd been unsatisfied with the accountability of some people who'd been on his team for years. And it just suddenly occurred to me, you are the chief accountability officer.
right.
If this has been going on for years, you have been abdicating your responsibility, and accountability starts at home.
You see, the difficult thing about selling is if you take any CEO or new CEO, somebody who's just come to the position. If you think of the things that they have to do, they have to have some form of financial management. Why? Because the government tells them they have to do that. All right. They have to have some kind of legal backup. Why? Because if they don't do that, there's a problem, right? They've got to have somebody to look after their human resources. Again, if they don't do that, the government's going to chase them. But when it comes to selling, very often they think that they can just wing it.
Hmm.
All right. So selling, well, that's easy. Let me just go and hire a salesperson. Right? There, yeah, take your salesperson, off you go and sell.
Hmm.
Okay. What's wrong with you? Why are you not selling? Didn't we agree that you were gonna sell, $1 million this year and you haven't done it? What's wrong with you?
Hmm.
Yeah. And that you wouldn't be surprised at how often that happens.
All right. So there we go. Don't fire salespeople. Their lack of performance, one way and another, maybe is your fault. All right. My first suggestion, about how to boost your sales with a better sales culture is to connect your salespeople with the results that your customers are enjoying. In other words, very often, our salespeople, they are there until the deal is signed and then they're moving on to the next deal. And this is a recipe for burnout. When you connect your salespeople and keep them connected, and I'm not saying they have to become the account manager, but touching base every so often, even the occasional client visit, these kinds of the ability of people to see the results of their labor, to be connected to and I use this word enjoy directly, to be connected to the enjoyment and to the value that they are creating for your clients and customers. That's going to keep your salespeople on fire instead of having them burn out.
Absolutely. I mean, I love what you're saying. But then the interesting thing here, that comes back to the way that the sales team has been structured
Mm,
and how those salespeople are incentivized. And the incentive, being incentivized doesn't necessarily mean money.
Well said.
Right. Okay. And I mean, I've had a number of conversations and beg people to rethink the way that they deal with customers, because one of the things that we don't realize is that customers typically, there's a difference between a customer and a prospect. So a customer is somebody we're doing business with already. We are probably, when you look at most companies, are doing about 75%, 70 to 75% of their new sales through existing customers. So it makes sense. It just makes sense to go and look after your customers and make sure that your salespeople are visiting your customers, because guess what? That's where the sales are going to be made.
Yeah, there was a book. I think it was an Adam Grant book. I'm trying to remember which one it was, but he told a story of, and this isn't directly sales related, but he told a story of volunteers in a college financial aid office who were burning out just left and right. These folks were burning out. You know, they've got their course load on top of the significant burden of what they're doing in this volunteer position. And when they were given thank you letters from recipients of these uh, scholarships, their burnout dropped off precipitously. And then so there's much lower level of burnout when those folks, instead of just getting thank you letters, were actually introduced to recipients of these scholarships and able to shake their hands and learn directly from them and hear the tone of voice when they express their appreciation for these scholarships. Then once again, even from that already lower level of burnout, there was again another precipitous drop off. And I'm reminded every time I think of that story of the uh, architecture firm that we worked with, where lots of architects, the junior architects, there was a lot of turnover, and they asked us to help them figure out why are we having this turnover. And it turned out that a lot of these junior architects, for example, they had worked on a building that was 20 minutes away, beautiful building, with I mean, a beautiful, exceptional building, and really very much enjoyed by all the folks who were working in and frequenting this building. And so many of these junior architects who had worked on that project had never gone that 20 minutes to see the building, because in a lot of these professional services firms, it's all about the billable hour, billable hour, billable hour. And if you're a junior architect, then you better be at your desk churning out the billable hours. And so penny wise, pound foolish, these folks were turning out. Turning over. And we think of our salespeople as being coin operated, and some are to some degree. And notice that I'm saying to some degree, only to some degree. Humans are humans, and we are all fulfilled by being able to be connected to the results that we're generating.
And I think that the kind of that thinking has to start right at the top of the company, and it's got to do with the forward thinking that the company is having. You know, are they playing the infinite game? You know, how long are they planning ahead? How long are they going to be with that customer? Or is this just kind of a short-term take? And that's a lot where it comes into, a lot is the thinking at the top.
Well, I imagine that more of your suggestions are going to go toward the thinking at the top. And Tom, what's your second suggestion for folks at home?
Hope is not a strategy.
And so what is what do you suggest instead?
Well, it comes back to, I was just talking about hiring salespeople. And very often what happens there is that we need to sell. So let's go out and hire a salesperson or hire a couple of salespeople. And then what do we do? How do we lead them? What do we give them that is going to make them successful? Because remember what I said in the beginning, it's all about us. It's all about taking accountability as the leadership. The leadership is there to give them the tools and the direction to make them successful. And it's all about supporting them and checking that they're actually doing it or helping them do it. And if they're not, making the corrections along the line. Uh, Very often we come into a sales culture that just, as I said before, go off and sell. And time and time again, that's where it doesn't work.
Yeah, go off and sell is not a an actionable directive, right?
Absolutely not.
Because especially because sell requires something of people we don't have control over,
Mhm,
right? So it's really got to be your instructions have got to be directives that have to do with behavior
mhm.
rather than outcome. And you need outcomes. I'm not saying you don't need outcomes, but you need specific behaviors.
Really, what I was talking about here in this hope is not a strategy is one has if you want to be successful at selling and create a winning culture for your salespeople and for the company, you need to sit down and actually think through the strategy and
Mhm.
think how are you going to do it. And in order to do it, what do I need to give to my sales team so that they are successful? And create their infrastructure and create the backup for them to be
Mhm.
successful and to help them all the time. And that is really what I was coming from.
And so the what are some components of a strategy that's going to be a winning strategy? Well, what questions do you need to answer in order to have a strategy that is better than simply hope?
Oh, well, very good question. So, as we said in the last time, we were talking about, are we selling to customers or are
Mm,
we selling to new prospects?
mm,
Obviously, the company wants to be in new business because we want to grow our customer base, but we've got to kind of understand what the ratio is there and how much effort we're going to be exerting in each place. So that's part of the strategy. Also, who are our ideal customers? Who are we trying to sell to? Who do we want to sell to? Who do we know are going to become great customers? Where can we go and add huge value to customers? Because if we add huge value to customers, they're going to stay with us and they're going to become great customers. So it's all that type of thinking that's been done. What kind of value are we actually providing? How much
mhm,
value are we providing to customers? Ask the question. Understand what our value proposition is. These are all very kind of clear strategic things. What are our key differentiators in the marketplace? Um, what makes us different? What makes us good? What makes us why you're going to exchange some money with us, and hopefully for that money we're going to offer you some value. Okay,
and
why are
and
you doing that?
one of the
So,
ways that I think about strategy, and I've found it really important to think this way, is that strategy is a hypothesis. It's a
mhm,
hypothesis about what's going to work. It's a hypothesis about who do we want to and who will be best served by what we do, and what is the winning value proposition. I know in my company we started with one hypothesis, and our hypothesis has shifted over time as we've gotten input from the market and input from our customers, those who were less than fully satisfied and those who have become raving fans. And we learn, especially from our raving fans, what really is it that we are offering.
mhm,
What really is it about what we do that's valuable to them, and what is gonna have people who are like them out in the market respond. So we
mhm.
learn from our customers about how to refine our strategy over time.
Also part of that strategy is the leadership being able to create a vision for the business, create a vision for their salespeople. So why are we doing this? And part of that, creating that vision and providing them the bigger picture, is drawing everybody in. So everybody's involved in
Mm.
in creating new business for the company, and also being very transparent about things. This is also part of a strategy, believe it or not. Let everybody know what is happening and how you're doing. That is a key thing. I mean, what I like to say to sales leadership is that you should be able to ask anyone in your sales team, what is our sales strategy? And they should be able to articulate that pretty clearly.
Mm.
These are the customers. This is our ideal customer profile. This is the marketplace we're playing in. They should be able to tell people that.
Mm-hmm. All right. Hope is not a strategy.
Hope
All
is
right.
not a strategy. It doesn't work.
My next suggestion about how to boost sales with a better sales culture is to reward behaviors that you want from the folks on your sales team, not only the results. I think about working with a sales leader in a flooring company who said, I keep asking my salespeople to be more relational in their selling. I want them really to be engaged in relationship based selling. And they're not doing those behaviors. And so I asked him, what behaviors is it that you want them to do? And he said, well, I want them to be going out to work sites, and I want them to be introducing some of the vendors that we know are reliable. Some of the other contractors that we know are reliable. If they're working with a glazier who's not been reliable, then introduce them to the glaziers that we know who are reliable. If the drywall folks aren't doing great work, then introduce them to the people that we know who are doing great work. And so I asked him, well, how often do you ask them about how many introductions did you make this week? Who did you introduce who to? And so not only reward, but even measuring the behaviors, asking people specific questions about the specific behaviors that you want to see. Because if you're only rewarding the almighty dollar, if you're only rewarding the revenue, then you're going to get the behaviors that they think are going to be the shortest distance between here and short-term gains in that revenue department, because that's how we work. We do the stuff that we are rewarded for.
Aaron, I absolutely love this one, because this is what it's all about. Really, and good sales leadership does exactly that. They need to reward the behaviors because they want to measure them. Good sales leadership is actually measuring the behaviors, as you said. You were talking about introductions and interactions and so on. So we say, what are we doing in good sales leadership? We are creating a sales process, because if we create and document a good sales process, we're creating a funnel, a sales funnel, and we want to be able to measure at every point that we are in that funnel. So we're creating metrics to do that. And we want to be able to incentivize our salespeople when they're achieving certain levels or hitting these different metrics, because otherwise you can quite easily end up with a bloated funnel, right? Nothing is coming through it.
Yes. Right.
Okay. So, and that's why it's so important to actually incentivize them. I love what you're saying here. Incentivize them for achieving the different levels of that funnel. But here's the rider. It's up to the sales leadership to help them move to the next point all the time, and to help them understand what their funnels look like and what the next step is.
Right. And separate even from the funnel, if, for example, you want your sales team to be recognizing, let's say Acme Widgets is one of your target accounts, you want them, and maybe even they're a new customer, and you want them to recognize and communicate with the customer when they see things like, oh, Acme Widgets just won a Best Place to Work award, right? My picking up the phone to call Acme Widgets and say, hey, I noticed this and I just wanted to say congratulations. It may not be the shortest distance between here and new revenue. After all, they're a brand new customer. They're not going to have to renew their contract for another 10 months.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to be measuring that behavior if you want to see that behavior.
100%. That's it's, and that comes back to selling to the customers again, right?
Right.
It is that interaction with the customers, and sometimes you might not get a sale out of a customer for 2-3 years, but you need to stay in touch with them. You need to kind of build them, because guess what? They're getting bigger. Hopefully they're getting bigger because of you, because you're adding value to them, right?
There you go.
All
right, Anton, you have a third suggestion to make. I want to know what it is.
All right. Learn from the Mavericks, but most of us are not like them.
Learn from the Mavericks. Tell us more about that. Let's start with, what is a Maverick?
Well, let me finish the sentence there, because I forgot to kind of say the last piece as well. So, but most of us are not like them, and plan for that.
Plan to not be like the Mavericks.
Plan that not all our salespeople are like Mavericks.
Mm-hmm.
So what I mean by the Mavericks, these are the people that you don't have to teach how to sell. They just know how to do it. They have got the personality. They know, they really just know how to do it. And very often you find these attributes in good founders of companies. They just know how to sell. They know their product so well. They know how to engage. They know how to connect with potential customers. They just do it automatically. They don't have to think about it. The hard part, and the reality is, that is a very small percentage of good salespeople. And if you kind of look at the stats, the people that do that type of work will tell you that it's about 15% of sales forces. So the trick is, how do we learn from them and emulate what they're doing and reproduce what they're doing? And that's where the plan for that part of it comes in. And the only way we can do that is by building great sales infrastructures to support the other 85% of the salespeople.
Yeah, so 85% of the salespeople are not this kind of natural maverick.
They're not natural mavericks. I would call, we call them journeymen. They one thing and they do the next thing, and they do the next thing, and they do the next thing.
What do you think about the idea? Because I think I see this, is that some mavericks seem to do everything wrong. And because of some, I don't know what to call it, some kind of alchemy, that though they do everything wrong, that everything wrong comes together in just the right combination to make them incredibly successful at selling. And if anybody else were to try to take these disparate things and try to cobble them together, it wouldn't work for them. So sometimes you've got to let your maverick do their own thing and actually encourage other people to not do what that person is doing. What do you think about that, Anton? Do you think I'm right, or am I off base?
Well, here, that's the challenging one. This is the real challenging one, because they simply do their magic because it's natural to them.
Yeah.
And on the one side, you want to let them loose because they can be very successful. On the other side, you would like them to fit into what the rest of the team is doing. And here comes the balance. Because you might have one exceptional maverick and you might have 4 that are just, they've got to follow the process, and they can get very frustrated if you just are always kind of letting the other one loose.
Yes.
And it's very difficult, and it is the wrong answer to say, well, I'm letting him loose or letting them loose because they're always successful at what they're doing. Um, you know, because these guys are kind of saying, well, tell me, what do I need? What do I need to do to be like them?
Yes.
So this is where this balance comes in.
And it's an important balance. And folks who come and watch these lives often may get frustrated and tired of hearing this story. I have a friend who worked for a Fortune 500 company, was a regional top salesperson, President's Club salesperson for this company, and yet he was required. The rule was you come in at 8 o'clock every day and you spend half an hour on the phones in the office, and he knew this is not the best use of my time. And if I had if I had been working with this company, what I would have recommended to the leaders is to say, well, figure out what are the criteria by which you could let this guy free. And if anybody else were to meet these criteria, they could also be let free from this obligation to come in at 8. So, for example, if you are closing X amount of business for any rolling 3 months, then you are freed from the obligation to come in at 8 and do 30 minutes worth of calls from the office, as long as you maintain that revenue mark or whatever it is. You create an algorithm, and anybody who meets that algorithm gets to behave just that little bit more like a maverick, as long as they're keeping it up.
And yeah, I like what you're saying there, because one of the thing that I try to instill in sales teams is, or with sales leadership, is to cultivate a culture of intentional leadership. And what I mean by that is that you are providing the salesperson a platform to be able to think about their progress and to evaluate their own progress and to be thinking about it all the time, so that when they come back to you, or you meeting with them, and hopefully you're meeting with them on a regular basis, they are telling you what you are wanting to know. And by doing that kind of intentional leadership style, it makes life for everybody a lot easier. And this often helps balance out that maverick and the rest of them, because they're having to think about what they're having to tell you.
Mm. Yeah, and what I hear, part of what I hear, I think, in this intentional leadership style that you're describing, is that it really requires presence, right? It's not relying on rules. It's not relying on how we've always done it. It's not relying on, this is what I want you to do, go away. It's really
Mm.
about being present and responsive in the moment.
And probably one of the best ways of coaching that, helping sales leaders to learn that, is to say to them, ask your salespeople, well, what do I want to know?
Mm. Mm.
Okay, tell me what I want to know. So the salesperson is thinking about what the sales leader wants to know, because the sales leader is wanting to guide them and coach them and so on, and wants to know the different metrics. That's the important part. The different metrics we were talking just now, how they were progressing, and they need to be able to put that forward without the sales leader telling them what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
Okay.
So there you go. Not everybody's going to be a maverick. Okay. My third suggestion is play Moneyball.
Mhm.
If you're familiar with Moneyball, Moneyball is the story of the A's and the Bean, who was the manager of the A's, and with a very small budget compared to some other winning uh, baseball teams, he managed to find individuals with different talents, and instead of bringing in superstars, brought in talents that, when put together, created a super team. So my suggestion is play Moneyball. ID individual strengths from the people on your team, ID strength gaps, and hire to fill those gaps, and deploy strengths rather than necessarily individual salespeople who are going to take this sale from beginning to end, but rather the ability to hand off the sale or to tag team or even to team sell in ways that are going to cover all of the sales strengths that you need to bring a sale to fruition.
That's a great point. And that comes back probably to the point before as well. It's about, remember, 85% of the salespeople are not going to be the superstars.
Mm.
So, how do we look after them? How do we make sure that they are successful? And it's pretty simple. It's all about creating strong leadership and mentorship, and creating an infrastructure for them to be successful. That's what if you know what that is, and it comes back to play the money ball, you need to be able to go through and analyze exactly what you need where. And if you've been able to do that, that's where you're going to be successful.
Yeah.
I like the
Um,
point.
I think about folks that I've, a team that I knew where, one salesperson was particularly good at selling to people first leaders.
Mm,
And one salesperson was particularly good at selling to take no prisoners kinds of
mm,
leaders. And so rather than having territories that were strict and defined, they would kind of hand prospects and leads around a little bit because
mhm,
I might learn very quickly, you know, trying to sell to you, Anton, that we're just not built to have the relationship that's going to make this work. And so I might say to you as my prospect, you know what, I think I'm probably not the best person in our organization to help you. I'm going to suggest that you connect with George over here, and you and George can might get to the end. And so this is one of the ways of thinking about playing Moneyball is which of your salespeople work best with what other kind of personality, or which part of the sales cycle does each person do best, or which kind of problem in the sales uh, journey does each salesperson accomplish best. For example, I might be really good at getting back the folks who have ghosted us.
mhm.
So if you and I are on the same team, Anton, and you're not particularly good at that, then you might want to say, "All right, Aaron, so and so's ghosted me. It's time for you to work your magic." And meanwhile, you might not be good at getting a cold, making cold outreach work, and so you might say, "I'm failing here," and have me take over that for you. This is another way of thinking about how you might play Moneyball with your sales team.
That comes down to successful sales leadership and
Agreed.
clever sales leadership.
Yeah.
Clever sales leadership creates a safe sales environment, creates an environment where salespeople can flourish, creates a culture that allows that. And to do that, they often need to empower their salespeople, allow the salespeople to make decisions when they are not being successful. To use your analogy there, when are they not being successful? When do they need to hand the ball off to the next person?
Mhm.
If you can create an environment like that, if you can create a culture like that, if you can create a safe culture around that, that's a winning culture. But you have to have strong leadership to do that.
Beautiful. All right, Anton, before we get to your fourth suggestion,
Mhm.
how and why might the viewer get a hold of you?
The easiest way to get hold of me is probably on LinkedIn. I think there are not that many Anton Brummers. Uh, and I'm on LinkedIn. Just search for me and connect. I'd love to hear from you.
And what might they be dealing with that would make it a good idea to reach out?
Well, we go out and what we see out there all the time. When we're talking to um, people that are looking for our help. Typically, it's organizations that we've been talking about or that are failing to live up to what we've been talking about.
Mm.
So it's organizations where there's a constant revolving door of salespeople. Salespeople are just going through them and they can't nail it down. They don't know why it is happening. But that is a very, very interesting symptom. We help people do that. Another area is when for some reason your sales are just kind of flatlined. Why they're not improving? What are we doing? We're trying to do everything that we can. We have got a great marketing strategy, but things are not happening. Why are they not happening? Sometimes it needs somebody to look at it from the outside. And really, another one that I encounter on a regular basis is that we find a founder or a CEO or um, typically a founder of a company that has built the company up. They are a great salesperson. They know how to do it. But in order to move to the next level, they're going to have to start handing over that sales capability to other
Mhm.
people. Now, how do you do that? How do you start putting the right processes and infrastructure in place to make that happen? So
Terrific. So,
you find yourself in
check
that
out
position,
Anton Brummer on LinkedIn.
easy.
Brummer.
Easy.
All right, Anton, what's your fourth suggestion about how to boost sales with a better sales culture?
I got my order a little wrong, but I'm going to just I'll put this one in. It is forget always be closing mentality. Forget the always be closing mentality.
Mhm.
Now, very often you'll go and do sales training or you'll hear sales coaches stand up and they say, you have got to be closing from the beginning.
Mhm.
And if you really want to be successful, forget the always be closing mentality. The sale will close itself when it is ready.
Mm.
You have to be patient. You have to help people buy. If you take that mantra, if you add value, they are going to turn around to you and say, I would love to have your product or service.
Mm. I love I want to highlight that sentence that you said a minute ago. I think you said something like the the sale will
The sale
close
will close
itself.
itself.
Yeah, the sale will
Mhm.
close itself when the sale is ready.
When it's
Um,
ready.
and what I've found myself is that as long as I am working to keep the ball moving forward,
Mhm.
we're eventually going to get to the end zone. I don't have to be constantly trying to make this moment bring me to the end zone. As long as this moment leads to the next moment, leads to the next moment.
If you are providing the right level of value, the person on the other side is going to say, I would like to have that value. I'd like that
Mhm.
value add, and I'm prepared to exchange some money for that.
There you go.
And they will say, please, what do we need to do to go ahead?
There we go. So forget the always be closing mentality. I think that's so important. Josh Braun, I think his name is, right? He talks about commission breath. And
Mhm.
if you are in always be closing mind, or if you are pushing your sales team to be in this mind of always be closing,
Mhm.
we can smell your commission breath. And just
Absolutely.
ask yourself when you smell the commission breath on somebody who's trying to sell you something. And notice,
Mhm.
even trying to sell you something is not something that your salespeople should be doing. um, we can smell the commission breath and we start to back away pretty darn quick.
Mhm.
Nobody, we all like to buy. I forget who it was who said, everybody likes to buy, but nobody likes to be sold.
Well, that's it, and if you take the mantra, if you think about it, if you keep reminding yourself, help people buy, help people understand the value that they are going to get from your product or service. If that is your thinking, the sale will close by itself.
Yeah. And so we've talked about, with the promise of this episode is boost sales with a better sales culture. Language is such an important part of culture. And so this language that's in quotes, always be closing. It's language that I would encourage leaders not only don't use that. Notice when people maybe are saying that, notice when people are using language that reflects that mentality and gently ask them to shift.
Well,
Culture is contagious, right?
yeah,
And so
you're
you
so
got
right.
one
This is
salesperson like that, the rest of them may follow suit, and pretty soon everybody's got commission breath.
and it is it's a culture, it's a mentality that is driven from the top. It's a bang, 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 bang,
Mhm.
bang, instead of thinking it through the other way.
Well, folks, I will remind you, I'm Aaron Schmookler, CEO, co-founder at the S Works, where we're working hard every day to help craft cultures with leaders and with their teams where people and profits both rise. Um, we've been working for just 2 months with a company here in the Pacific Northwest, where the CEO called me and he said, "We've really got an issue with trust, and I'd really like to boost trust with and among my team." And he very humbly said, a big part of the issue is with me. I have trouble trusting my team. And I'm always so touched by that kind of transparency and humility. Last week, 2 months into our time with him and his team, he said, you know, 2 months ago I was walking on eggshells, and now, trying not to offend people and trying not to get people mad at me, and it was leading to people continuing to do things that don't work effectively. And now I'm speaking directly to it, and people are really receiving what I have to say because we have a common language among us about how do we provide feedback and how do we work together effectively, talk about what's working and what's not, set expectations well. So that is why I think of what we're doing as my life's work. If that resonates with you at all, then I encourage you to reach out to me. Like Anton said, there aren't a whole lot of Aaron Schmooklers on LinkedIn. I am, in fact, the only one. I'm the only Aaron Schmookler on LinkedIn. You can find me there, and you can find me at theyesworks.com, theyesworks.com. All right. My fourth and final suggestion for people, Anton, you let us off with something that was really potentially controversial, right? Never fire your salespeople. If you do, it's your fault. I'm ending with my controversial recommendation: reimagine comp plans. And I know there's a little bit of a catch-22 here. Dan Pink and others have demonstrated that when you incentivize with money performance that requires any level of creative thinking, responsiveness at all, then performance declines. And yet that's how we compensate our salespeople. Almost every organization compensates salespeople with commissions. You earn, at least in large part, a percentage of every sale that you make. And uh, and so the catch-22 is, it's hard to hire good salespeople without that kind of comp plan. And as soon as you put people on that kind of comp plan, their performance goes down. And the kind of culture that we've been recommending, where you're rewarding the behaviors that you want, not just results. You're trying to get the behaviors, not just drive the results. Where maybe you're playing money ball, and Anton and I might be willing to hand leads back and forth. That's hard to do if it's going to cost me a commission to hand somebody off to Anton, even if I think he's more likely to be able to close that business. So, I don't have the answer to what kind of comp plan could you construct. Some companies I know put their salespeople on a salary strictly, and then there's a group bonus. If you reach a certain threshold, everybody is rewarded. That's a completely different way of thinking about comp plans. The idea that maybe if I hand something off to Anton, that I get an assist and there's some reward for that. That's another way of reimagining comp plans. I will say this simply. Uh, this is not, I don't have the prescription for you. And I am not going to judge if you stick with the traditional comp plans. I will say that some of the suggestions that we've made are going to be easier to implement, and you will get more traction on them with your team if you go back to the drawing board and rethink how you are paying the people on your sales team. So there's my controversial way of ending our 8 ways to boost sales with a better sales culture.
And really, that's exactly what it's all about. Because remember back in our conversation, what we were saying, what we're looking to do is we're looking to incentivize certain behaviors.
Mhm.
Okay. And so a lot of thought has to be put into those comp plans, because what behaviors do you want to incentivize? You know, it's not, it's not always that push, push, push. It's not always be closing. It
Yeah,
is, you know, building up, helping people buy. And how do you create those behaviors? And that's where the comp plan comes in.
right.
But I do
You
agree
know,
with you.
we all can remember, probably it hasn't been very long. We all remember what happened at Wells Fargo, right?
Mhm. The perfect
You've
example.
you've got to be really paying attention to what are the behaviors that you are incentivizing, because if you're not careful about it,
Mhm.
those incentives can really backfire.
Yes, and I think that so that goes right back to the senior leadership of the company. And it's the
Indeed.
mindset that the senior leadership have. And I'm sure you've read the Simon Sinek book, Playing the Infinite Game.
Yes,
And it's
indeed.
about the companies that are prepared to play the infinite game that are successful
Mm,
and implement that type of thinking in the way that they reward people.
right. All right. Well, I think that's a great thought to end on. Thank you,
Mm,
Anton. Appreciate your having been here.
mm,
Thank you to those of you who have stuck with us and been getting value about how you can boost your sales with a better sales culture through my conversation with my good friend Anton Brummer. Appreciate your being here, Anton.
Thanks, Aaron. It was great being with you.